All right, thank you. Everybody ready? Yes, sir. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Town of Queensbury Planning Board meeting for Tuesday, September 15, 2020. This is our first meeting for the month of September. Meeting number 12 for the year of 2020 thus far, and our 8th meeting under the COVID pandemic guidelines. Note the red exit signs. In the event of an emergency, those are the exits to use. If you have an electronic device, a cell phone or other device, if you could silence the ringer or turn it off so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings, that would be excellent. We may have members of the public interested in participating by way of the town's YouTube channel this evening. And just to let those members of the public know that we do have a few items that will have public hearings this evening. And if you are observing us remotely and you wish to make public comment when those applications arise, you'll be notified when the public hearing is open on those individual items. But you should make note of the telephone number, area code 518-761-8225, is that is the number that you can use to ring into the planning board meeting and give us your public comment. And with that, we have a few administrative items to begin with this evening. The first being approval of minutes for July 21 and July 28th of this year.
Okay, motion to approve Town of Queensbury Planning Board minutes for July 21st and July 28th.
Second it.
We have minutes approval made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any questions, changes? No, I guess not. All right, Maria, I guess we're all set for the call.
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Ms. White? Yes. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes. Next, under administrative items, we have several different items. The first being a recommendation to the Queensbury Town Board for adoption of local law to amend Queensbury Town Code to establish renewable energy systems and facilities regulations. And Laura, could I ask you to give us an overview of the material that you've distributed to us tonight?
Right. So the town board is ready to adopt a local legislation to put into effect. Right now it's in reference to solar.
Yep.
Specific to freestanding ground-mounted items that require site plan review. And so that's why I took some time and put together those notes in reference to, there's like, apologize, maybe 10 items. And so if you're in agreement with some of those items that the board should take additional look at them, then you could include that in your recommendation back to them. Or if you have additional questions, please include them. I don't know if you have any questions of me going through those materials, or if you want to hold this till the end of the meeting to go over some of those items. I can do either one.
Well, I'll leave it to the board. Do you want to discuss this now, or should we wait until after the regular agenda and discuss it later?
I'd rather wait till the end.
Wait until the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's reasonable.
Then we will do that. We'll hold this in abeyance until we've concluded our regular agenda items this evening. We do have two other administrative items, and thank you, Laura. We do have two other administrative items. The first is Site Plan 54-2019, The Great Escape, is requesting a one-year extension. And I think this was the approval for the, was this the digital sign, Laura?
No, for Great Escape, it's in reference to the Swan Ride area that they were going to redo the bank erosions and items like that.
Right.
So we identified as staff that their approvals were going to expire, so they quickly put together a quick note saying they'd like to be tabled or requested an extension for another year. They haven't started that project as of yet, and so this would move them, at least give them another year, and it's specifically due to COVID.
Okay.
And you'll see in the next month or so an extension request probably for the ride.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw in the media recently that they're not opening this year, so
Correct.
there's not a lot of activity. Okay. All right, and we have a draft. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that before we go to a motion? Okay. We have a draft motion, I believe, for that.
Motion to approve a one-year extension for site plan 54-2020, the Great Escape Properties.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Maria, can you call the vote for us on that, please?
Ms. White? Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes. And next, we have site plan 59-2019 for Mark Pozanuski,
Correct.
requesting a 6-month extension or June 2021.
So they've actually changed that specifically to June of 2021. And
Okay.
what happened is that they did clean up the site, and now the discussion it revolves around the fence that was a condition of approval. And he'd like to evaluate if there's another alternative besides the fence, or he may put up the fence. But he wants to evaluate that. And obviously, with the season coming upon us with winter, he's not going to be installing a fence at this time. So he
So
has
it's-
at least to June of 2021 to make sure that he can decide what he's going to do, or whether he's going to come back to this board for a modification to that.
If he's not going to follow the approved plan. Okay.
Correct. He knows that.
All right, everybody understand that? All right, any other questions on that motion? If not, we'll entertain the draft motion.
Motion to approve an extension to June 2021 for site plan 59-2019, Mark Pozanuski.
Second it.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Maria, can you call the vote for us, please?
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Ms. White? Mr. Traver?
Yes. All right, and then we move to our regular agenda. The first section of the agenda is planning board recommendations. The first item is William and Kathleen Bazzi, site plan 41-2020. Laura?
So this application is for a demo of an existing home to construct a new home. The floor area to be 3,065.3. Project includes construction of a 384 square foot detached garage and installation of a new lawn area, patio area, driveway, and stormwater management. The relief sought for this project is reference to floor area ratio, setbacks, and permeability.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, John Lapper, Bill and Kathy Bosey are with us tonight. Essentially what this is a 1957 camp that badly needs to be replaced. Their goal is to make it their year-round retirement home. It's built basically on the footprint of what's there now, so it matches up with the other homes on either side, and the neighbors are both supportive of this. The additional square footage that's being requested, and admittedly, the floor area ratio that's requested is 32%, but it's just that it's a small lot. It's certainly not a grand house. The basement, right now it's on a crawl space. They're only putting in a 5-foot basement for mechanical and storage. So what's new is at the rear of the house on the roadside is a master bedroom and a handicap bathroom, which they need, and the garage to make it a year-round house. So with all that, it's less than 500 square feet of additional square footage from what's there now, and the permeability is actually increased over what's there now, or less impermeable, and they're including stormwater controls, none of which exists from an old house. So there's new septic system, new stormwater controls, and a very modest expansion of what's there. So the reason why the floor area seems like a lot is just because it's a small piece of property, but certainly not a grand house.
Okay. Can I ask about the buffer area, the shoreline buffer? If I understood the material correctly, it's currently at 15 feet,
Yes.
and the minimum width is 35?
There are a couple of big trees and there are a lot of small plants, but they're willing to add whatever the board would like to augment that.
Okay, good, thank you. Questions, comments from members of the planning board?
I have to say, I don't usually look at floor plans when I review site plans. And I had to get a chuckle on this one when I started looking at the floor plan, and I said, doing a comparative analysis of walk-in closets in the master bath. Nomenclature, one says Kathy's closet, one says Bill's closet, and Kathy's closet is double the size of Bill's. I just wanted to.
You were surprised though, were you? Yeah.
Shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah.
A follow-up on your question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
How does the current buffer compare to code?
So right now it's 15 feet, and we're to maintain a 35-foot according to code. So again, that's guidance. You have the discretion to review what's there now and potentially whatever is going to be put in place. But the guidance says 35 feet.
That's site plan.
Yeah, I think, that was the only thing that caught my eye is, we are increasingly concerned about the environment of the lake, and it would be nice, and the applicant has offered to discuss increasing that buffer, which I think would be important.
So, there was an inconsistency in the application. On the drawings, it shows a 28-foot building height, but in your site development data, it says 30-foot.
I'm sure that it's 28 feet and the data's wrong.
Any other questions, concerns? This is a referral for the variance.
I like the idea of the front yard drywalls here, proposal number 1 and 2. The proposed drywalls on either corner. I'm sure that's a lot for stormwater and the gutters. And you have a third one in the back, so you really are trying to control the water. I like the idea with the new upgraded septic. Overall, I think the project will fit nice in that property.
Yeah, this is another example of, a pre-existing sort of non-conforming structure that's being renovated in I think, a more environmentally friendly way.
However, it's still, further non-conforming. So, you can still do it on the same footprint and at least make it the same non-conforming, but more non-conforming.
One of the other questions I had is on your application for the new septic system. It talks about a fence to keep people from driving onto the new leach field, onto the new tile fields, but I didn't see that in the new drawings.
Bill, do you want to address that?
There'll be a complete fence around the whole property in front of between the road and the septic system. It can't be driven on that whole property. It will be a full fence. And the septic field would be within the fence area. So there wouldn't be a
John, could you either have that gentleman come up, or could you repeat that, so it's in the minutes?
Bill said that the whole site will be fenced on the roadside so that there won't be an issue with anybody driving on the leach field.
But what would stop the owners from inadvertently driving onto the tile field?
It's going to be grass, and they've got a pretty good-sized parking area.
Yeah, so it'll be fenced in, so you won't be able to.
But are you saying that the fence is between the parking area and the leach field?
So the leach field will be behind the fence.
But they're asking, they're, okay.
Maybe you should come up and get on the mic if you would, just to make sure we get it all on the record. And introduce yourself if you would.
Hi, my name's William Bosey. Yeah, you see where the fence line is there?
Yeah, it says it's going to be removed, though.
Well, for a new fence.
Oh, okay.
There'll be a gated new fence there. We have dogs to keep the dogs in. The whole property will be gated. So there would be no way any cars could drive onto the leach field.
That's really caught my eye when I saw remove
Yeah.
existing fence, and I saw on the
Yeah.
prior plans that was, I don't know if it was a condition, but it was, suggested that it was put there so that somebody.
Yeah, they were concerned about compaction driving on the leach field
Right.
when we came to the meeting for that, but the fence will be there so that there cannot be anything driven on top of it.
Okay.
It'll be all grassed area.
And we can make that a condition.
Yeah.
Site plan as
So, as far as our referral to the ZBA, the only thing I wanted to really pass along is just draw attention to the buffer, which the applicant has agreed to address in some manner in site plan. As far as the variances, so the referral is for the FAR setbacks and permeability. Do we have any specific comments related to those?
Just that I see this as an opportunity to bring it more into compliance instead of further. If you're gonna rebuild, why not rebuild within, the setback?
More permeability?
No, no.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you because you're so far away from the mic.
They are in the setback, you can't talk. The floor area ratio and the setbacks are being asked to be further non-compliant. I guess I see this as why not bring it into compliance?
You said you needed a handicap. So that's one of the reasons.
Yeah,
we
well-
walk a little bit.
Yeah, we do, my wife developed a disease here where we kind of built the house around what's gonna be in the near future here, so we're trying to get it big enough. The master bath is where the extra area is, and I'm gonna need that for handicap accessibility.
And that's what necessitates the increase, 500 square feet.
That was our thought in designing the building, yes.
And in terms of the setbacks, it's 49 feet from the lake rather than 50, only because that's exactly where it is now, and that meets up with what the neighbors are. And the side, it's a narrow lot, so, they did what they could. But
I mean,
it's,
the side setbacks are about the same, right?
yes,
Sure,
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, you're
So we're not-
talking 8.3 inches to 8 foot, you lost 3 inches.
Yeah. So
Um,
it's not,
Then, really, I kinda got a chuckle at the 49 foot plus slash minus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're going with the existing, and, I mean, I looked over that, and, like I said, I really think you fit this, pretty well on the property, gain that much more footage. So I'm happy with it.
and John, first plantings in the shoreline buffer, rather than put anything on the submission to the zoning board, you can come back next week.
We'll come back
or
for the
something
planning board.
to address that, so we'll just send the variance through for the 3 items.
Yep.
Okay.
I sort of, I've got a feeling the same like Jamie, you're picking up 937 square feet, on that floor area, greater than the maximum. And then you got an 8% increase in permeability. And we've looked at large houses before, and we made comments about very large houses on small lots, where we've had the same thing, a demolition and a reconstruction. And,
And then once we want a little bit bigger, then the next one comes in a little bit bigger. This is a very small lot.
in the same, I mean,
Not a big
I would have liked to have seen something more substantial or documented here to say what's gonna be in that buffer area.
Well,
On the shoreline buffer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna come back with something.
Well, they are, but it would have been nice to come in with it now to say, okay, we're giving a recommendation to the zoning board. And what's that based on? I know that, well, there's been.
Well, the variances that were,
I was gonna follow through on that. There was, the calculation is laid out for us here as far as that, and Laura's gone through on it. But I'm just saying, in the material here, counsel for the applicant has stated, we'll do something. And that's next month, and next time when they come back to site plan. I'd have liked to seen something in writing, if that's recognized now that that was something, I'd have liked to seen something in the material here or a note on the plan. That we recognize now, before, when we come to you now, we recognize that it's insufficient. And that's just a comment.
okay.
I don't think the increase in the FAR is that exorbitant at this point. I mean, it is a small lot, and it's a modest house. So, I mean, we have to, it's difficult for everybody involved. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with the variances.
Well, why don't we note just that we discussed the FAR, and part of the explanation given was to make the house more accessible.
I mean, you could express that that it was, some had concerns about it, not all. It wasn't unanimous.
Right.
You could mention it that way.
Yeah, some concern voiced about the increase in FAR, and part of the discussion revolved around the accessibility issue.
I kicked Brad under the table, he just wouldn't say anything.
You what?
No, I'm dying over here in this mask. You know, I stated, I mean, knowing building, I mean, you're staying pretty much on the same footprint, and, you know, they're asking for 3 inches. You're increasing the permeability by, what, 2%, 2.4%? I mean, it's a give and take for the 3 inches and the 2.4% on the permeability. I mean, I'm sticking with my guns here. I think it'd be a good project.
So one of the things I was thinking about since we're talking about this, and I even wrote it down, and it's not just this application tonight, but we have a couple of others that are similar, is it'd be interesting to see some data, some like real data, because I saw the lot size of 0.22 acres, and that's a really small lot.
Sure is.
You know? So it'd be interesting to see, because one of the things that the comprehensive land use plan talks about with lakefront properties is consolidating lots so that there's fewer houses and lowers the FAR that way. And we don't really see a lot of examples of that. And when we do, they tend to be really big houses that buy up like 3 lots and then put up like a 6,000 square foot house or 8,000 square foot house. So it'd be interesting to see some real data. And I don't know the ability of staff or the technology in the town hall to like pull up some information so that we could begin to like really analyze that. I mean, the FAR by itself kind of does that, but it'd be interesting to see. So, yeah, the FAR is 66%, we asked for 75, but in the past, this is what we've approved, or this has been the norm, or this has been the average. It'd be interesting to see some real data. So when we have these projects, we can say, hey, look, you're more than, you're exceeding the FAR, but not only that, you're more than average for what we've seen. Or maybe even set a limit and say, hey, if you're this big on this size lot, we're not gonna approve it. And then it gives guidance to the applicant too, so that it has, some, not flexibility, but so they know coming in, well, this is likely to be approved or not likely to be approved. And so, it's like these discussions become a give and take, and the applicant says, well, we'll do stormwater controls, we'll do a new septic, but in turn, we're gonna ask for relief on FAR. And, we do the balancing act and we say, hey, that makes sense, we're okay with it. It'd be nice to take it away from an art and put it more into a data science, if that's possible.
I can try, but I mean, I'm thinking the 22% is, that's what your guidance is.
Right.
That's the law.
No, I know.
I mean,
I
so I
realize
don't
that.
quite know, so if someone comes in with above that.
Well, this one comes in 10% over.
Right, so it's over, and the board, both boards, sometimes question that.
And how many do
extent
we
of
see a
relief.
year? Probably 2-3 dozen. I mean, it's almost more common than not common.
Especially on these tiny lots.
Yeah,
That's the key.
So it's like the FAR is really not doing us what it needs to do.
The one we purchased
Right, yeah.
And there's not a chance for consolidation here with structures on both sides.
No, there isn't, yeah.
Yeah, the consolidation issue, I mean, who are you gonna get to sell their lakefront lot?
Prices.
Yeah.
But-
Well, the other thing too is when we came up, with the original number, all right, that was based on on the information that we had, and the septic systems that we're using. Now that we got the shoreline buffer, they're working on, the stormwater, and with the newer, septic systems that we have, not to, to defend, I agree what you're saying, it'd be nice to see some data on that. And it might also prove that with these new improvements that have come with the newer age of things that we're using, are actually an improvement to, that ratio, where we could have that little bit, more of a buffer, but without it, we can't tell.
Right, yeah. We sit here every month doing the same exercise when, maybe data would suggest something different would be more appropriate. That's all I'm saying. And we don't have the data to know.
Okay.
I mean, maybe the FAR should be 70% instead of 75. I don't know.
Oh, that's permeability, I mean, 22 versus.
What's that?
That's permeability.
Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah, permeability. Maybe it should be 70%.
Well, why don't you think about it, Laura, and what, if anything, can be done to give us some hard data, and then we can discuss it on Tuesday when we come back.
Okay.
All right, so, any other discussion on the referral? We talked about the, I guess mainly the FAR, right, that was discussed, and there was some concern voiced about that. We wanted to bring that to their attention. I guess I'm not hearing anything else, so we're ready for motion.
Motion to make a recommendation on behalf of the planning board to the zoning board of appeals for area variance number 30-2020, William and Kathleen Boston. The planning board, based on limited review, has identified the following area of concern: the increased FAR request, which was explained by the client's need for handicap accessibility.
Here we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the motion? Maria, can you call the vote for us, please?
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
No?
Mr. Adeeb?
Yes.
Ms. White? Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
You're off to the ZBA. The next section of our agenda is unapproved development, and under unapproved development, we have Sherwood Acres Construction, site plan modification 35-2020. Laura?
So in this case, the applicant had received approval back in 2018 to construct a new home. Also included additional site work on the site, installation of stormwater and landscaping and the new home. In the meantime, what had happened was an additional 617 square feet of hard surfacing has been added. This includes some permeable pavement area, retaining walls, and asphalt driveway area. And the applicant has explained that it is to assist some of the neighborhood issues that are going on and accessibility for driveways for some neighbors. And so the applicant's.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mike O'Connor from the law firm of Little, O'Connor & Bory. I represent Sherwood Acres Corporation. Dan Barber is the principal of Sherwood Acres Corporation. He's here. I have a letter that was addressed to the zoning board. I might read it, though, just for background. This is from an adjoining neighbor, Ron Makoviak, who lives next to the property that we're talking about. Below are my comments in support of the subject application. I am one of the 3 property owners that share use of a private road, Glen Hall Drive, right away in the vicinity of the 3 Glen Hall Drive. The additional hard surfacing in the parking area is providing access to the new parking spot at 5 Glen Hall Drive, the Gansel property, which is the Gansel property. You got Sherwood Acres, Gansel, and then Makoviak. If grass was used in this location, there would eventually be only dirt remaining from driving and turning on the grass strip while parking at the new spot at 5 Glen Hall Drive. The decrease of site permeability will easily be mitigated by the new dry well previously installed under this project. This dry well was a condition of approval for the site plan for 3 Glen Hall Drive. The dry well was located on my property, on Makoviak's property, as recommended by the engineer of record in order to maximize the amount of water collected. In the past, this stormwater eventually found its way into Glen Lake during heavy rainfalls. And I will submit that to Laura, and you can put it in your zoning board file, I think you want.
Yes.
Signed by Makoviak.
So thank you for that. I guess the obvious question is, when you decided to change from what was approved, why not come in at that point?
I don't think he necessarily knew that he wasn't going to get 100% credit for the pavers that he put in. He'd only get 50% credit for that. And also, the pavement made sense when they were laying it out so that Gansel would have a place to get to his property through this property without going on grass or something of that nature. Those were accommodations. There are things that you might not see in this plan, but in addition to using pavers that were permeable, the applicant also put infiltrators that took the stormwater from the roof and moved it to the back of the property. He also put in or bought an easement from an adjoining property owner to move the septic system probably 250 feet back from the lake as opposed to 100 feet from the lake, and installed his septic system in that back property where it would be more not economically, but environmentally friendly. He maintained the buffer that was out along the lake. He didn't disturb that. There's a number of other things. The sidewalks that we're charged with for being non-permeable all have gravel on each side of them so that they drain into the earth very well. He's done what he can on the site to make it work and make it work for him and for the neighbors. The other neighbors also have no objection to what has been done. And if you've been to the site, I think you see that there was a pretty good effort to make a good project out of this thing. Before, it was kind of roughshod, gully type driveway going up to this property. Tom Center is the engineer, and he could probably tell you more about the stormwater capacity. The infiltrators are greater than what is required. The dry well is greater than what would flow to it, significantly greater than what would flow to it. And we think that we've done a good job as far as mitigating the lack of permeability that we're offering on this particular site. Tom, you want to speak?
Good evening, Tom Center.
Yeah.
Record. Laura, if you can just zoom out a little bit on the project. I'll kind of go through a little bit of the project here and explain a few things that were done additionally, and then the added impervious surface. But if you look down along the shoreline, something that wasn't in our original plan that has been left in there is about a 3 to 4 foot vegetated buffer. It's natural buffer that's there. The lawn wasn't taken right up to the lake, so there's a natural growing buffer. It's thick. It filtrates anything going towards the lake. The planting bed is in there, more plants than we had initially. On either side of the house, the initial plan had eave trenches that came down towards the lake to a infiltration trench that kind of connected to the permeable patio that was in this area right here. We've taken those and instead guttered the roof and taken them back away from the lake, and now the stormwater goes towards the back. Give you a little history on the project. If you remember, Mr. Seavey originally was the owner. Mr. Barber wasn't involved at the time. We came up with the three-tiered three-tiered retaining wall and kind of left showed a couple of planting areas. But Mr. Barber, who purchased the lot from Mr. Seavey, came in with his knowledge of the lake and reusing some of the things. Instead of doing the concrete retaining walls, used some of the rock from the excavation to build boulder retaining walls, which provided plenty of infiltration underneath them, and that's in the area of a two-tiered step, which allowed more plantings. There's a larger planting area right on the second step. Mr. O'Connor talked about the septic system as opposed to holding tanks. We now have a septic system that pumps across over on an adjacent parcel. The parking area was upgraded to as opposed to permeable pavers. These are open source pavers that have stone in them, so it actually provides additional infiltration volume between the paver, the top of the paver and the bottom of the paver on top of the stone well that's underneath. As you remember, there was some contention with the neighbors, the Gansels, the tight property, the Burks next door. Mr. Barber coming in, having done a lot of projects on the lake, worked with his neighbors around this and was actually able to do a project that wasn't in the system. It was a minor project for Mr. Gansel, where they were able to shore up this back earth wall here, and then redid the parking area, and ended up butting up the pavement a little thicker to allow everybody to have access and to be able to turn and come in and come out. The paving area now for that entire area went from it goes from Mr. Gansel's property right here, that's permeable paver, all the way across. So we have a very large volume. We actually upgraded the neighbor's property that ties in together and uses the same stone wall. I would take responsibility a little bit for the sidewalks. My original plan, we talked about mulch pass. I didn't show it clearly. We had the retaining walls with steps coming down. Mr. Barber, having done this work before, put in sidewalks, and he put in a little bit too much. So, but the rest of it, as far as the paving, we have that additional drywall that was required by the plan, which, if you look at the 391 square feet of asphalt at 1.5 gallons per square feet, requires 80 gallons of storage. The drywall we put in has 130, so there's 50 cubic yards or 50 cubic feet extra of stormwater to maintain some of the stuff coming down from Mr. McKoviak's property. So there's a few trade-offs here that we did, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Questions, comments from members of the board?
I have a stormwater question based on what's provided in the project narrative and then in our own staff notes. It may sound silly, but I just want to, in the narrative, project narrative, and it says, the new landscape rock slopes will allow infiltration of stormwater.
Mm-hmm.
Then the staff note says, same thing, the applicant indicated that the new landscape rock will assist the existing parcel and neighboring parcels with stormwater runoff. And my question is, how does rock absorb?
Well, underneath all those rocks it's a boulder rock wall, and it's all lined with stone underneath. So as opposed to lawn where it would run off on a slope, any water coming down on it, there's a stone reservoir underneath all of those rock walls that are allowing it to get into the soil, and these soils are fairly permeable.
So
There's large open voids in between the stones with a rock base underneath, and whether it's on the slope or it's on the flatter area.
So the rocks,
not infiltrating, it's the stone base
the rocks are not absorbing, that's an obvious answer, but, so it's almost like a French drain created alongside?
Correct. Underneath the rock wall or, along that slope. And the sidewalks also.
Well, I have to say, I took a peek, and once again, Mr. Barber, it's amazing what you do with rock. And I hope you're finally using a machine, because all the other ones you used to do back in the day, I think you used to carry yourself there, young man, but it's really, what you did, it's like I said, you drive up and down, your neighborhood, he built all that, you see it on Bay, all those rocks right past T Hill going north. All those, rock tiers was all built by Mr. Barber. We go back years of watching him build rock walls. I'm just amazed, and you went a little overboard, but you have for as long as I've known you. So, but I think you did a tasteful job, and with the extra storm water retaining and that, I have to say, I'm happy with the project, and like I said, I really think it came out spectacular and helping out the neighbors, and I know those rocks aren't gonna go anywhere.
And some of it we probably couldn't have presented the first time we were through without having neighbors on board and the neighborhood project coming in, kind of tying the two of them together. So this is a little bit here, a little bit there, that added up to look like a lot, but it's really two small things that kind of came together to be a larger issue. But in the end, if we had actually been able to put this on paper the way it is right now, I think it would be a very approvable project in that world, where the perfect world. If I could have done it better.
Drawing it out.
Right.
All right, other questions, comments from members of the board? Our referral is regarding permeability. Guess we're ready for example.
Okay. Motion to make a recommendation on behalf of the planning board to the zoning board of appeals for area variance number 28, 2020, Sherwood Acres construction. The planning board, based on limited review, has not identified any significant adverse impacts that cannot be mitigated with the current project proposal.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a referral, motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Maria, can you call the vote for us, please?
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Ms. White? Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Benzinger?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes. You're off to the ZBA.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is under old business, and the first item under old business is Gary Higley, site plan 30-2020. Laura? Sorry.
So this applicant is requesting to construct a 590 square foot garage, and the zoning board granted the relief for setbacks and permeability. And as you recall, at the last meeting that he was at, he worked with Nick Rowell from Soil and Water in regards to rain gardens and things like that on the property. And I understand that Mr. Higley talked with Dave Hatton today and resolved a flood zone issue as well. So here for the site plan now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome back.
Good evening, board members, good evening. My name is Gary Higley. I'm asking to remove an existing garage that is 14 feet from the lake with blacktop underneath it, and removing that and building a new garage that's 65 feet from the lake. And we are in on the, oh, that's not my map, but on the plans where the existing garage is now, we would be putting in a rain garden designed by Mr. Rao.
Okay, and you did receive your variance approvals from the ZBA?
Yes.
And in that process, were there any changes made to your project?
No, it was a unanimous decision, and they actually liked the project a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Questions, comments from members of the board?
All right, I think it's a really great project. I know you were in here before for one thing and you changed up, and it's gonna look great, and the improvement of the water, I appreciate your effort.
This is a really good project. We've got a problem with water coming down J Road and going into the lake, and this is going to solve most of that issue. Our neighbor was required to put a dry well in. It helped some of it, but not all of it, and this is going to solve the problem.
Okay, this is under SECRA. This is a SECRA Type 2. Is the board comfortable moving forward on this?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I guess we're ready for,
So do you, Mr. Chairman, you
Yes.
need to open your public hearing?
oh, yes, thank you. My apologies. We do have a public hearing on this application. Is there anyone in the audience first that wanted to address the planning board?
Can I just remind the participants that we're going over one as you need to submit.
I'm not seeing anyone in the audience. I will remind the public that if you would like to make comment, as I explained before, if you could call us at area code 518-761-8225. And Laura, are there any written comments?
Yeah, so there's two neighbors on J Road that signed the same letter. As adjoining neighbors of the Higleys, we approve the plan to remove the existing garage away from the lake and build a new garage that will improve drainage. This is Tracy Taylor at 20 J Road and Vic Celadon on 29 J Road.
Okay, thank you. I'm not receiving any calls from the public, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and now we're ready for our motion.
Motion to approve site plan 30-2020 Gary Higley. Per the draft provided by staff, conditioned upon the following. 1, waivers request granted. 2, the approval is valid for 1 year from the date of approval. Applicant is responsible for requesting an extension of approval before the 1-year time frame has expired if the applicant has not yet applied for a building permit or commenced significant site work. 3, adherence to the items outlined in the follow-up letter sent with this resolution, including items A through G.
We have an approval motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Maria, can you call the vote for us, please?
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes. You're all set. Good luck. Thank you.
Good luck.
Gary, if you want to pick these up, you can get a copy.
I'm a big devil's not direct that. I know. Cast.
Let me pull them off here.
Thank you very much.
Tell Susan I said hi.
Thank you very much. And he says hi too.
The next item on our agenda, also under old business, is Clearbrook LLC subdivision final stage 12-2020. Laura?
All right, so this applicant received approvals at preliminary stage to subdivide this lot into 2 lots. And at that time, at preliminary stage, we discussed what would happen to the larger lot, we call Lot 14, and it was agreed upon that that would remain undeveloped at this time. That's the proposal that they're presenting in final stage. So Lot 13 would be 5.02 acres for 1 residential home, and Lot 14 would be noted as undeveloped at this time.
Okay, thank you. Hello again.
Good evening, Board. Tom Hutchins with Dave Lipinski and George Story, principals of Clearbrook. We were here a couple months ago with this in preliminary, as Laura stated, and the changes we have made reflect the discussion we had that evening, which was for the time being, Lot 14 will be a vacant parcel. We are working with the town on the water district, and that still seems to be an ongoing issue. However, what we're showing for Lot 13 to be 1 additional building lot is, we've got confirmation from the water department that we can get water, and this is a high and dry site. Very relatively simple building lot. It's very, very flat. And this lot itself is essentially unchanged from what you saw the last time. And with that, I turn it over to the board, unless Dave, you want to add anything? No. Okay.
Questions, comments from members of the board?
I just want to say, and I said it before in the last night, I've driven down there, I've driven down the lots, and I mean, what a What a vision to see, you know, such dense woods. And really, it's been a long process and a long haul to get this far. And sounds like we have maybe one more time we're gonna get to see it, huh?
Tom, a lot of engineering comments.
Yeah.
Okay, how you doing with those?
Yeah, I took a little different approach in that I amended the SWIP for the entire site in this, and we didn't quite communicate all that well with the engineer, apparently, based on the number of comments they have. I mean, we'll address them. This is a very, very simple site, as far as the technicals are concerned. And I keep those things relatively simple in this case because when we sell a lot, the owners rarely want to do exactly what we've shown on these original subdivision plans. And a lot of times it gets refigured anyway, so I try to keep it relatively simple, and they want us to expand a little bit on that, and I have no issue with that.
We know you have to have sign off, engineering sign off.
We'll have to get a
But I've seen that many
And
comments.
for what it's worth, this lot presently is under contract to the owner of lot 12, so it probably won't be built upon for some time, but we're gonna get it to be a building lot, and it will be a building lot, and we'll certainly get through the comment. I didn't do anything differently than we did with all the other lots, and they may, I don't know, I think they may have raised the bar in their review a little bit, but that's fine. I'm okay with that.
What was their first comment they made in the letter from Thursday says, because there was no response to comments.
They had comments when we had lot 14 shown, when we were here for preliminary. I didn't respond to those. Because it was getting changed, because we changed it. What we will do is file for coverage individually for this lot. Will be done by a new owner at the time they wish to institute construction.
As part of the general permit of your company, saying coverage?
As coverage under the general speedy stormwater permit, yeah.
And Tom, could you fix your match?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thought I could do that, yeah.
And this is unlisted under secret?
It's already been completed on a preliminary.
I thought at preliminary we did.
We did it in the preliminary.
Dave and I had already had a discussion about that.
Yeah, oh, okay, he's way ahead of me. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, I guess we're ready to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve subdivision final stage 12-2020 Clearbrook LLC. The requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act have been considered, and the planning board has adopted a secra negative declaration. 2, waivers request granted. 3, the approval is valid for 1 year from the date of approval. Applicant is responsible for requesting an extension of approval before the 1 year time frame has expired. If applicant has not yet applied for a building permit or commenced significant site work. Adherence to items 4 through 11 of this resolution.
We have an approval motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the motion? Maria, can you call the vote for us, please?
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Ms. White? Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Tom?
Thank you.
Tom, probably useless to ask if you want to.
You can't see me smile behind me.
Bob never takes it. He never takes it.
I know. That's
But
why,
we always ask, don't
that's
we?
why I didn't ask him.
We just do it to...
You want to take him?
All right.
Okay.
Just
Hey.
to throw us off, yeah.
Yeah, now you threw us.
I'm the guy that,
You threw us a curve.
We can always use that, I appreciate it.
Okay. Sorry, Tom.
Old plans have a tendency of finding their way to a construction site.
Thank you very much.
I have a big pet peeve with that, which is part of the reason why I don't like him to walk away with all these plans.
I know why we had that talk once,
Because old unapproved plans have a tendency of making their way to a construction site.
Thank you.
Next item is also under old business, CKT Enterprises LLC Site Plan 37-2020. Laura?
Okay, so this applicant is sort of twofold. There's a project in play for enclosing the pole barn, which is currently 2,620 square feet, and then with a 436 square foot addition, this allows for the overhead doors for a storage building. In addition, the applicant had previously removed a fencing area that was part of the original approval of the funeral home, and since then has installed a open fence and some lawn area. And if you need additional detail, I can go through that, but the idea is to review both projects for the buffer, as well as the enclosure of the storage barn.
Gotcha, okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. For your records, my name is Ethan Hall. I'm principal with Rosinski Hall Architecture. With me tonight is Star Mowry, who is the owner of the property CKT Enterprises. Laura described the project to you. It's an existing pole barn that was actually part of the Woodbury's lumberyard when that was there. The property was built up. Laura's got the pictures of the pole barn up now. The actual roof overhangs the front of the building 6 feet, and we are adding 4.5 feet to the front of the building to enclose that. So we're staying underneath the existing roof line and just adding some overhead doors so that kind of covers up. I mean, right now it's a wide open pole barn. It faces the parking lot so that when people come to the funeral home, they're actually looking right into it. So we're trying to get that closed up and make it a little more less unsightly.
You're not gonna pile up caskets in there, are you?
I don't believe that's the intention, no. The overhead doors, I believe, are shown on the front elevation of the building. There is one larger overhead door on it'd be the north end of the building. The rest of the overhead doors are gonna be normal overhead door height. It's for the storage of the vehicles that go with the funeral home.
Okay.
As to Laura's other point, the portion at the back of the lot, the original, do you have the pictures that I sent from the original, Laura? There was an original chain link fence that ran along the back part of the property. That was also part of the Woodbury's lumberyard, and it was.
What do you think, what's the back part, which side, north, south, east?
It would be the south end of the property.
All the trees behind it?
Yeah, it was all overgrown and a lot of undergrowth and it was a lot of like sumac and things like that. The overhead picture you can see from there. That was all taken down. All of the old chain link fence was taken out. Star also owns the building that's at 4 Glendale, which is the building that's the back part of the property. We were in here a year or so ago for the additions and the fencing or the decks and stuff that we put on the back of that building. She's got it all planted. It's all lawn in the back of that building now, and the new fence that's there is actually on that property, not on the funeral home property. So she put up a split rail fence, feeling it was more of a residential feel. And since she does own both properties, she just felt that was a better solution for her. There was some mention of cross lot. At one point, there was a driveway that went between the two. That's been taken away by putting this fence up, so there is no cross lot communication anymore.
Okay, before I open it up for questions and comments from the board, I'm going to go ahead and let the public know, if they're viewing this, that if they wish to make public comment when we open the public hearing, they should call area code 518-761-8225. And questions, comments from members of the board?
What's stored in the pole barn now?
All kinds of stuff. It's stuff that they're not as concerned about for security purposes.
Because it's open.
because it's wide open and there's no way to secure anything. So they don't have a whole lot of stuff that's in there. It's some miscellaneous equipment and things that they've had that are around. It's Star's got some, I think there's a camper in there now.
Actually, we have our hearse out there, we have the leaf vehicle with a Lincoln Navigator. We've got $80,000 times two and really nice funeral vehicles that need to be closed. And we only have the two attached to the funeral home and we not blown out.
So outside of that, there's not a whole lot in there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna look, nice closed in. I mean, it really, it's a beautiful funeral home. I like what you did in the back, the split rail. I like that, and cleaning up, it's more open, it looks, it kind of fits in. But looking at that open garage, and I know, you know, from the Woodbury days, you know, how many times going to the racks in there over there, so. I think it would really be a nice addition, and especially for the business and to protect because those pole barns, that wind whips and the leaves and the dirt and the snow, and, yeah. And I forgot how much of an overhang it was until I looked at the prints, and I'm like, oh, yeah. It's like, I see how they're going to close that off. I mean, good idea, so.
Thank you.
Although that's still fun. Yeah. We were just saying the squirrels are the biggest issue. I'm afraid I'm gonna go a funeral in the morning and get my purse out of there and I've got a squirrel inside of the engine or something.
Oh, boy.
I wanna get it close to it. I think it would be a good asset. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and officially open a public hearing on this application. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to address? Yes, ma'am.
Ethan? Ethan, hold on, I'm sorry. Before you speak, have Ethan wash the mic off.
Yeah, thank you. I gotta remember to add that to my own.
Tough to capture.
We only have 45 days.
Exactly.
Hello?
It's only me. I keep wanting to make sure the phone actually calls.
Oh, very good. All right, so you're not making public comment in addition to
Everybody,
your...
I want everybody to know it does work.
It does work.
Hi, my name's Evelyn Scher. We own, partner Mark Snyder owned that house right there that you're seeing in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first moved in, Bud had just taken the fence down, the chain link fence, and we told him we wanted the chain link fence up there. That's what we liked when we brought the house from them as the business, but it never got put back up. What our only problem is, we really have no privacy back there. When they have funerals, people go out and they smoke, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. But, you know, they end up in our backyard almost, you know, and we would like a fence to continue on, a privacy fence, just so that our backyard, we can enjoy it again. The business has grown a lot. They're doing very good. Cars never used to park in the back. Now there's cars parked there all the time. I think it's mainly the employees. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not complaining about that. This is a business. I'm, you know, a residential business area. It's just that I would like the fence to continue, and I'd like a privacy fence so that I can sit in my backyard when their business is going on and anything else is happening and still feel like I have a residential private home, you know what I mean? And we've lost that since we've been there. It's, you know, the business has grown. It's, you know, I don't know how to say it.
I think you've explained it well, and we can discuss that with the applicant.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, I don't mind them enclosing it. They've done improvements to the house next door to us. I think we've done improvements since we've moved in there. I just like to feel some privacy in my own backyard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that?
And when they wanted to do something with the white building, we changed it, said whatever they want to do, was fine. But now that it, you know, it's just like in our backyard.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
And Can you say the name of the person, the gentleman in the back? Can he repeat his name?
Mark Snyder.
Thank you.
Okay, we only had one phone call with no real public comment, so we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
That's standard hearing.
If the applicant could return to the podium. So the one comment, I know you heard the discussion about the concern about the fence being removed, and I understand you have plans to replace it with a split rail fence?
It's there already.
Oh, it's already, oh, okay.
Yeah, the
I'm
split
sorry,
rail
I didn't
fence
see
is
that
up.
picture. Okay.
Yep.
It's from that fence on to the back of their house, to the back part of it.
According to Star, that chain link was gone. Can you go back to the overhead?
That one?
No, the overhead picture. Yeah, this picture that Michael has.
This one? Or the other one?
There it is, yeah, that's it.
That chain link had already been gone.
Late, let me clarify that. There was never a fence
Could you get on the mic and just state your name for the record, please?
Yep, Star Baker. I believe she's talking about between the funeral home and her house, where she's got storage buildings. The one on the left is actually on my property. The other three are on the line, and they're supposed to be set back 15 feet. I said, I'm not gonna argue, let her put them there. But there was never a fence between us, and they bought the property with no fence at all between us. And the one she's referring to that my brother Bud took down was parallel with her right side of the house. And for Glendale, he took that down before they closed on the property. It was gone before they, and I've got pictures of it. The reason there was no fencing between the blacktop at the end of the parking lot and their house was the fence went all the way over where Noon Whistle Deli is, all the way straight back, came across by the water side, the furthest part of their house, came up the right side of their house, and then continued over where I have the split rail now.
And where is the split rail now on this
The
picture?
split rail now is where the parking lot is, halfway, at the end of my right building. Shoot straight back, right there.
Yep.
So now come over about 2 parking lots, nope, to the right. From there, over, yeah, about where the blacktop is.
About where the
From
tree is.
there, all the way to the right, to the end of the pole barn. That was the last of the split rail fencing that finally I had a chance to take down. That was literally tipped over. We've got pictures. Did you send them the rest
Yep.
of the pictures? It will show there was no trees. There was one, a white birch tree, and he noticed it was dead. I didn't even notice. The only one that we could salvage. The rest was all George Pfeiffer's grapevines and the woodbury fencing, and it was a jungle. It was a mess. It was getting garbage trapped in there. It was debris from the old Pfeiffer place. There's some really good pictures to show it. I sent them to him. All we did was remove that garbage and the junk and really cleaned up the property.
How long has that fence been up?
That fence has been up since spring. I did it April. And I planted 6 fruit trees. Once we get the pole barn taken care of, then the rest of the blacktop will be a defined straight line coming down to meet the pole barn. So it will clean up. See how the grass is growing into the crushed stone? It's going to continue the blacktop straight down and give that nice barrier with, or buffer with the barrier. That's the plan. But, yeah, the fence was never there when they bought the property, and I do have pictures of that. And I'm not required, I know, to put it, something that didn't exist between us, so.
Other questions, comments from members of the planning board? This is secret type 2. Are there any written comments, Laura? I guess I already closed the public hearing.
So I don't have any written comments.
Okay.
I'm not gonna make my comment.
Members of the board feel comfortable moving forward?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we have a draft.
So I just want to clarify, you're accepting the
The buffer.
the buffer that they
Hang on,
have in
folks.
place.
Can we have your attention? We're still discussing things here.
So I just want to confirm that you're accepting the buffer that's in place, where I've explained that you can do a fence, or you can do the 50-foot green, a 50-foot green. So,
Yes, we're talking about what they've already
Okay.
done. Okay, were there other questions, comments?
No, I just made a comment to Dave. I don't see how you could possibly put in a 50-foot buffer, given what's already there. There's just not enough room.
Right.
right, but is what they've provided sufficient to, so you're supposed to have at least a 50-foot buffer on both sides? So there would be 100 feet of green. And I understand that. I'm just
Yeah, that's not-
trying to
yeah.
point out that a buffer contains, it can contain a fence, it can contain multiple plantings,
Right.
it can contain other things. Right now, it's a split rail fence with fruit trees.
Right.
Is that sufficient between a commercial use and a residential use?
I think in this case,
Can I use an example of O'Reilly's? I own the ranch straight ahead,
The white-
okay?
the
The
white-
white behind the trees. I own that ranch. O'Reilly's just put in their place, there was the old George Pfeiffer, old wooden fence from the 80s, and when they did their construction, they dilapidated it, they were required to put it back. They did not put back any of their ugly, big buffer of junk and garbage and anything. They just put in
A
the
privacy,
barrier, no buffer.
but that's an exception, so they put in a privacy fence, instead of a 50-foot
Well, they
buffer.
replaced my fence that
Well-
was on my property that already existed. So I don't know.
It was a complicated case. But what I'm trying to say is, in your case, you had a privacy fence. In this case, you're doing a split rail fence with lawn and a few trees.
There's a privacy fence there?
No,
No,
that's what you're putting out.
Oh.
It's just the split rail fence.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and I'm just asking the board, is that sufficient between a residential use and a commercial use? And same as yours, between O'Reilly's and your residential use, you now have a privacy fence.
There was a privacy fence there before, but to me, there's the barrier and the buffer. They had a barrier and a buffer, now they just have a barrier, no buffer. It's just grass with a fence.
But that is what I'm asking the board, if they're approving that as the buffer. That would stand as the buffer. Is the board approving that?
Okay, gotcha. I thought the fence was the barrier and the buffer was like your landscaping. Thank you for clarifying that.
other questions, comments?
So the split rail fence is between your property and your other house? Yes.
That is my property on both sides of that fencing, correct?
I know, I probably would rather see plantings myself, too.
She's planted some fruit trees there.
There is. If you see, I just planted those
How many
trees.
fruit
There's
trees
6
did you
of them.
plant?
There's 6 fruit trees.
Okay. All right, that's, all right.
They're gonna get big. Hopefully someday.
All right, I think we have a draft resolution.
We have no problem with the railing, the fencing that's in front of what they did.
Excuse me, ma'am, the public hearing is closed for this evening. I think we have a draft resolution.
Yes, we do. Motion to approve site plan 37-2020, CKT Enterprises LLC, per the draft provided by staff conditioned upon the following. 1, waivers request granted. 2, the approval is valid for 1 year from the date of approval. Applicant is responsible for requesting an extension of approval before the 1-year time frame has expired if the applicant has not yet applied for a building permit or commenced significant site work. 3, adherence to the items outlined in the follow-up letter sent with this resolution, including items A through G.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Yes.
Laura mentioned that, are we accepting the 6 fruit trees? Can we request maybe some other shrubs or something more of a screening nature than fruit trees? I don't know.
Well-
I just kind of heard that as the last second and then we went to motion. I apologize if I was a little slow there. And
Well, let's, I'm not sure what parliamentary procedure is. I guess we just withdraw the motion.
You can amend
and
your.
Go ahead and have your discussion.
You can, yeah, so you can amend your motion, but she's asking, you can ask the question during this discussion period.
Yeah,
So what she's saying is that split rail fence, it doesn't extend the entire length of the buffer. It only extends to the length where she removed the fence. But there are two residential properties there. There's one where this owner who spoke, and then where Star owns.
Right.
So she removed the fence where she owns, and there was apparently nothing where the previous owner was. So
and there was nothing there to begin with, right?
there was
Right.
nothing there to begin with, but you're
No
right.
offense to the neighbor, but they want me to put up a fence that was never existing, and I'm not required to do that.
But-
There
but
was
the
no-
question-
But
does come
so
about
let me just get
if-
back to, now, hold on. So you have a project in front of you. So that's, the board can, the project in front of them is where the board can request that you include the buffer for the entire length. They could, they don't have to. You've presented information to the board that, yes, I've taken that down, I've installed this fence and some fruit trees for the length where I removed it. So,
But that doesn't go through their,
does not
It
go
had
to the
nothing
second
do with
property.
their property.
Does not go to their,
That's where I think the confusion is.
So Jamie, you had a,
that's okay, sorry. I'd like to hear what Laura's,
so again, so it only goes to the length of where the original fence was.
okay. So there's a portion that's unfenced, unbuffered.
Right.
So if we're looking at this map that's here now, could somebody show us about where the fence ends?
I thought it went all the way across the,
No,
It never did.
right there.
Right about there.
Oh,
So this is this neighbor that's asking, maybe there's something additional that can be placed here. But again, that's not, it's up to the.
so the fence and the fruit
paved
trees?
area here?
No,
Yes.
here. But this is where this ends. So this is this is where the,
Okay.
just about here is where that gravel. this
It
is
goes
where
up to the
gravel-
shed, yeah, you see the shed on the second page picture?
Right there.
Chris?
How many
Yeah.
feet are not fenced?
Maybe 200.
Laura,
Okay.
what's code on the buffer for the
50 feet.
commercial,
It's 50 feet. So 50 feet width
for the whole property?
for the whole property.
Yeah.
Well, that-
And there's not room for that. I mean,
This-
that's,
this
No.
lady-
Well, there is
this
room for,
lady-
but there is room for a fence.
there's,
We used
well,
to
there's
own
room for
that
something.
property.
There's
That's
not,
why there's
I'm
no
not saying
fencing
fence,
there.
you go to the whole property.
right.
No, I don't think you're confusing
For a
two
buffer.
things as far as I'm saying. We're not talking about what was there, we're talking about what is required.
What's required?
It was
Right.
required, now what was there?
So
Yeah.
now we sit here and discuss, we've had a motion, and there's not a problem with the application, but the point's brought up. Oh, we got residential and commercial. There's a requirement for a buffer on either side of that property line where those two uses come together. That's our discussion now, right?
Yeah, my understanding was that the fence went all the way across.
It never did because we
It
owned
didn't-
property.
I'm not
No, I know, you've
We
explained it.
understand that, Star, but that's not what we're talking about.
Gotcha.
Okay, we're saying that the requirement says it has to cover the your whole property line.
Even though it's never been.
Even though it wasn't there before, the requirement says that it has to cover.
I can't even put a fence up there, stuff is on our property.
But that's
They'd have
part
to
of what
move it
we're gonna
first.
talk about as a requirement, knowing that you can't meet it. Okay, if you don't do 50 foot, do you do 12 foot? Do you do 20 foot?
Or do you
What
install,
do?
or do you install the fence, which is
Yeah.
the appropriate buffer, so.
Yeah, would it be possible, Star, for you to extend the fence all the way across?
I can do the split rail fencing across, but they have to first move their one building in the back upper corner there that's on our property, and then the other ones, they don't have permits to even have there. They're right on our property line. And that was brought up in the past, and I'm trying to do the right neighborly thing to say, I'm just gonna be quiet, not say anything, but they have to remove those two buildings that they didn't have permits to put there. Chris Hatton was there and actually cited them for a junkyard and too many storage buildings on a piece of property. So how do I get around that?
That's code enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to go to.
All right, then we'll have to enforce that if they're enforcing it, or you guys are to put the fence.
Well, we're not enforcing it, we're doing what is said in our written code.
But
Gotcha.
what I'm saying is, so she's presented a plan that only covers a portion of it. You
Right.
can accept that,
Thank
and
you.
noting that there's issues on the remaining fence line. So, whether that property owner puts up their own fence, there's no requirement that they
They
can't.
can put their own fence up.
Yeah,
Right,
there's
they
a-
bought the property without a fence, nowhere
No,
on
we
the property.
we understand
They
that,
want a
you've said that
fence?
many times, we understand it.
Okay. I was just
Um,
thinking they should have to put the fence up.
Okay, so we have, the applicant during the public hearing indicated that they would like some buffering or at least a fence. You've indicated that you would be willing to do that, but they would have to accommodate moving their buildings away from your property line.
It has to be.
Would it be amenable, Laura, if we were to suggest that the applicant discuss with the neighbor whether they wanted to do that? And if so, the owner would extend the fence, and if not, they would not extend the fence?
I
If
think
you
that's a
understand what...
reasonable discussion, because if the owner of that property cannot relocate those buildings, then STAR can't move forward with.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Well, they can relocate them, I mean, they could theoretically move them away. The question is that, doing that desirable enough to warrant getting the additional fence, or would they rather not have the fence and not have to move their... I'm just saying, why don't we just suggest that they have that discussion
That's fine.
and reach an accommodation of some kind? How would that work
And
for
then
you?
just
Steph?
submit.
Is it something formally discussed, or just as neighbors we discuss and say, where do we want to go from here? Is
Right,
that
and
what
then
you're saying?
what you can do as part of your final plan is indicate, I discussed with my neighbor, they're not willing to do this, I don't have to move forward with it. And I don't, whether.
That would be on the final plan that would be submitted to Laura.
Yes,
Okay.
You follow me, right?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Is that all right with members of the board? Okay.
So I have to add that.
The applicant to discuss potential expansion of the fence between their property and the neighbor. And if that's agreed to, it would be revised on the final plan.
Correct.
Ethan, I hope you mediate this well.
You notice you can't see a smile behind
Yes,
us.
Yeah, that's an issue. It has been strange.
Smile with your eyes. I keep trying to do that, Jamie.
We're holding up pretty well, though. This is the 8th meeting we've had with this COVID business. So we have an amended motion to offer shortly.
All right, motion, if I have to amend this motion.
Right, and you can
Right.
add, just say it's like, you're amending the motion with a condition. You don't have to read the whole motion. Just the condition.
Okay. All right. I don't want to say motion to amend the original motion.
Yeah, just say you're
All
amending
right,
the
motion to amend the original motion to read applicant to discuss future fence expansion with the neighbor and final decision to be placed on the final plans.
That works for me. Is that all right with you, Laura? Okay, all right. Yes.
Jason, you're here.
I would make a note that if this contingent discussion between owners fails, that the site plan still goes on as approval.
Thank you.
In other words, the site plan doesn't fall apart or fail or whatever. That's not,
Well, no, and we're not, that's not part of the condition.
But I think that's a good point. I think you should add that.
Okay. So what language would you suggest?
Can you?
German.
That the,
Doesn't that take away the applicant's initiative, though, to satisfy the neighbor?
Why? It covers us later, so they don't come back to us and saying, hey, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. That's in their hands. We're looking at an approval. We said a site plan's gotta have a buffer. The contingency is the discussion
So,
between the owners. The
I guess we
owners-
could just say
Okay, I see what you're saying.
if the fence isn't extended, the site plan is still approved.
All right, amend the motion a second time. If negotiation,
Sorry.
if negotiations for the fence boundary fail, then the original site plan is approved.
All right, we have an amended motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amended motion? Maria, can you call the vote for us, please?
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hunzinger?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Deeb?
Yes.
Ms. White? Mr. Traver?
Yes. You're all set.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Ethan, you want to?
Yeah, I'll grab those back.
As Tom says, old things tend to find their way into places that they don't need to be.
I mean, yeah, good new one if they, this will be interesting.
I know, thank you.
Do you have a minute after the meeting?
Plans for, you know.
I know.
Ethan, do you have a minute after the meeting?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So that concludes our regular agenda. We need to return to an administrative item that we moved to the end of the meeting, and that is the discussion with regard to establishing renewable energy systems and facilities regulations. And Laura provided us with some comments on this, including some things that we should consider in our referral.
You want me to just quickly run through them?
Yes, please.
Okay. So on page 6 and page 10, we talk about rooftop and building mounted solar collectors.
Right.
In other portions of the document, we talk about the maximum panel height is 12 feet. They don't note that there.
So it should be consistent throughout.
It should be consistent throughout. I'm concerned when they say that some of the language says you can't be any higher than the maximum height in that zone. And all of a sudden, they learn of a stacking method for solar panels, and you now have one that's 60 feet high.
Yeah.
So I don't think that'll happen, but I don't know that for sure, and I just want to make sure that we're prepared for that.
Right, that makes sense, sure.
Can I get a question on that?
Absolutely.
My first comment when you just drew this months ago and stuff, my first comment that there was nothing in there on rooftop. But now we have rooftop, but all I keep on hearing, this is a ground mounted solar.
So right now, rooftop and building mounted solar panels do not go through site plan review. So when you, you want, they should.
Folks, excuse me.
Okay.
Hello? Yes, if you could just take your discussion outside so we can conclude our meeting. Thank you. I'm sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, I think Laura was answering that point about the ground mounted solar does not require.
Rooftop.
Rooftop.
It's not triggering review.
So you don't like the maximum height restriction?
I don't know what it is.
She wants
It's
it
not
to be
labeled.
consistent.
So you want a number?
I want it to be consistent. Then that's what I've noted in my notes, that they should address that. So the idea of me listing these items is that if you repeat them as part of your recommendations back to the town board, then they will potentially look at them. If there's any one of those comments that I've made that you disagree with, or you want to amend that, then we should do that.
Right.
What was the other comment? You had two. You had page 6 and...
So do you see I have my notes? Because it's right in, it's listed as a rooftop and building mounted solar collectors.
Her notes are.
No, I didn't get the note.
Yeah,
No,
you
this is-
keep track.
I mean, I just got them and it's, I was, you know, so many, are these your notes?
No, that's the
No, it doesn't
actual
look like
legislation.
I don't remember getting the note.
A through K?
A through K, you
Yep.
got it.
Yeah,
Maybe I did get it.
yeah, they were part of the package.
Yeah, I mean, is there a possibility that we have a longer chance to look at it? I mean, we just got it in our package
So,
and I'm.
actually, I believe it was emailed to everyone prior to this.
We're in the staff notes, Brad.
Yeah, they were part of the staff notes that were emailed and also mailed.
So the comment about the bond requirement,
Yeah.
I mean, that's in the code anyway,
It's
though,
in the
right?
code anyways,
So-
but it's not labeled in this section of code.
But if it's in the code, wouldn't it still apply?
Right,
As
so
part of
in-
site plan review?
It should.
Yeah.
So just clarification,
Okay.
does it? And maybe that's more of a, I just wanted to find out when they were actually adopted.
Right, but I
Or would it
certainly
be-
agree, any solar panels should not exceed the maximum height restriction.
Well, the wind loading is going to, just from the engineering standpoint, they're not going to make them 50 feet high. But I agree with Laura, there should be
Yeah,
some consistent
yeah,
language in there.
absolutely.
You never know what they will do.
Yeah, Yeah,
So,
kidding.
actually, you could, I apologize, Brad, you had asked if you could take some time to look at it. So
Yeah.
it's not going before the town board until Monday, September 28th. So
So why don't we finalize this next week, next
Sounds
Tuesday?
good.
I mean, I'd appreciate that. I mean, it's just a lot, and like I said, I could just picture someone building a pole from the basement all the way up to the house and then mounting their sun twisting, solar panel, 100 feet in the air,
Yeah.
And you mentioned that they're emails, and I understand that, but right now, I'm only getting emails on here.
Okay.
So.
It was also in the hard copies that were mailed.
On here.
Hard copies didn't get to the house till yesterday.
Yesterday.
We didn't get the hard
Okay.
copies yesterday.
Okay,
I know
well,
it's
we're delaying it a week, so,
I'm just putting my 2 cents in that I appreciate that.
sure, yes, no, that's fine, thanks.
It's been all night.
So we don't need to table this because it's just an administrative item, so we can move it.
Can I ask some questions though?
Sure, yeah.
Is there anything in here for visual analysis?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything like that, like the way DC used to have a little checklist.
See, the only reason I asked, we had, I don't know, here, it was Saratoga County coming across our desk to review. We had a lot of solar arrays, so much that the dairy farm community does not want to call them solar farms.
I saw that.
But they're coming in there, and we've got loads of them. One I have to review Thursday at our meeting is on a 90-acre parcel subdivided in 2 parcels. And Wilton has a nice, they've adopted it, and I think I had provided it before. Wilton has a nice one, but one of the things that came up that I just didn't catch, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, it's on a county road, and it's got houses, some houses, they're sparsely populated out there on this road. But the solar arrays are behind the houses and through wooded areas. So one of the guys that I sent out to look at said, hey, what do you do for those 4 to 5 months in the year when all that tree coverage has gone? And you see clear through. That's why I'm looking at, and we talked about that under secret and visual analysis.
There's some really big ones in like Schoharie County.
Oh, yeah.
And there's that big one,
You see them on the thruway.
going outside of Whitehall too.
Yeah, that's huge, yeah.
I don't know, I mean,
That way-
I understand that farmers that are land rich,
Yeah.
it's a real attractive
Or
option
those
for
that
them,
don't have
but
a
I
good
still don't think.
functional operation on their farm, and
Yeah.
said, I've gotta make some money, and I don't wanna
Right.
sell the land yet.
Exactly. that's what
Well,
I'm
one of
saying.
my concerns is the decommissioning of them, because there's a lot of toxins in those things.
Yeah,
And so, we don't have anything on the rooftop, but these ground-based arrays are gonna be a lot bigger. And whoever puts them in, there should have, I don't know if it's a bond or something, there should be something that takes care of processing these things when they come out, because they don't last forever. In fact, some of them don't last long at all.
That's part of stuff that's a sample legislation that's come through NYSERDA with their thing. They do have that, that is a big clause in the end there about that, because somebody says, okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna put this up to 20 years. Well, the whole technology changes in 8 to
Right.
10 years.
So in the code, it does talk about decommissioning, but I'd also like to see something that talks about not only decommissioning, but completing the project. So they've started their project, technology changed, so they're not gonna complete their project. So,
right.
So there should be maybe a performance bond or something, so if it's not completed,
and that was what the other piece was.
what?
I'll give them to Laura.
Could you share that proposed legislation with Laura, and maybe Laura could distribute to us that part about the decommissioning?
It's in here. That's a complete decommissioning.
Oh, it's in there, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I didn't see that. All right. So think about it. If you didn't receive it in the snail mail, let Laura know or let me know, and we'll make sure that you get a hard copy, and we'll plan on discussing this in detail on Tuesday. So if you have some notes as you're working, or you can work off Laura's recommendations. I thought hers were very good. One of the concerns was a setback, which she caught. So let's talk about it on Tuesday then, all right? Is there any other business before the board this evening?
Appreciate it.
All right, can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.